Hello, and welcome to the Volleycast. I am your host, Joe Trinzi, and on the other line is nobody. This is a solo episode of the Volleycast. Yesterday, we relaunched with my good buddy David Hunt, head coach out of Pepperdine, and we talked about kind of what's ahead of us. The challenge, the challenge in the world ahead of us is pretty clear. You guys don't need our help knowing about that. But the challenge for us as coaches is, what do we do now? How can we still serve our athletes? How can we still serve the volleyball community, even though we're cooped up in our apartments, like I am right now, like a lot of you are right now? And kind of what can we do to still be a part of this thing? And that's what I want to explore. So I'm going to just take a few minutes here to kind of talk about what the goals I had with relaunching the podcast, and what I'm hoping to do is kind of get a feel for what coaches are doing out there, contribute what I can do, and just kind of be that process of connecting coaches to what we can do right now to serve our athletes, to be good for athletes, A, both right now, and then B, whenever we're able to get back in the gym, how can we hit the ground running? And Dave and I talked yesterday on episode 1 of like, I think so many coaches are just going to be so itching to go. I don't know if we're going to have the best practices ever when we get back in the gym, or if we're going to drive our athletes up a wall because we've been like dying to practice so badly. We're going to be up their butts with 100 things of feedback every second. So it could go either way. But regardless of how it goes, I think we'll all be excited to get back in on it. So here's a few things that um, I'm thinking about and I'm wondering about, is how we can connect and what coaches are doing. And we have a webinar coming up actually with Tom Black, head coach at University of Georgia, also head coach of Canadian national team, and he's telling us what he's doing. National team seasons are in limbo, collegiate seasons are in limbo, and we're going to have a webinar with him on Sunday, 3:00 Eastern. We got a few more spots to be a webinar participant. We're keeping the number of spots pretty low so that we can have a lot of interaction. And I think we'll probably be hosting those weekly, maybe every other week, with other top coaches out there who are talking a little bit about what they're doing specifically to handle these challenges, but then also just a lot about just knowledge in general. So not so different from a typical coaching clinic that a lot of us may have been signed up for. But yeah, live coaching clinics are probably off the table for hopefully only a couple months. That's, I think, kind of what the hope is. That at some point in the summer we get back to a little normalcy, but who knows? We'll see how that goes. So we got Tom Black coming up 3:00. I still got a couple. I think we got about 5 more spots left in that webinar. So if you want to go on scoutvb.com, you can check that out. You can sign up to be a participant. Otherwise, we'll probably put out the video, audio content of that for other people who weren't able to participate directly. But if you want to be able to participate, if you want to be able to get some face-to-face questions, well, as face-to-face as we can get now, questions with one of the top coaches in the game, you can go check that out. So that's scoutvb.com. And just in between, I think every day I'll either be putting out just a conversation with another coach out there, some of the smartest coaches that I know, getting their opinions on what they're doing right now. Or maybe just a little Solosode here where I'm just trying to connect some of the dots and share some of the things that I have, and just what I'm doing to help the players and teams that I've been working with. And on this distance coaching thing, which is kind of the reality, that's something that I have a little bit of experience with, since I was one of the assistants, technical coordinator on the USA national team, including 2016 Olympics in Rio. And then after that, my wife and I have kind of been roving nomadic volleyball coaches, or people in the volleyball space. I've sort of traveled all around the country, all around the world, even really doing coaching clinics, doing camps, helping programs that are trying to build programs in their area, wherever it is. And My wife runs these international tours, which are all canceled, and I've had the opportunity to coach on a few of them. Things like World University Games or USA College National Team, stuff like that. I've been an assistant, kind of a short-term consultant coach at a bunch of programs, overseas in the pro league, collegiate men, collegiate women. Actually, now recently with Team Canada, helping out Tom Black over there as he took over the program. And as part of those, I generally kind of maintain that relationship when I can't be there. Maybe I come out for 2 to 4 weeks to help out. And then there's a lot of, hey, I'm looking at video, giving feedback, trying to be productive with that feedback while not overwhelming, that kind of stuff. So I've had my foot in this space a little bit for years now, but having to really step up our game on this front, as we all have. So here's here's what I'm thinking of. And those of you who are watching on video, hopefully the screen sharing is working like a lot of you. I'm learning new technologies, new techniques on the fly here. And here's what I'm thinking about. Distance coaching is now a reality, and we don't know how long it's going to be. I think my intuition is longer than we expect. If we were thinking about 2 weeks ago, this is something that we heard about, and it's probably not going to be a big deal. Are they going to cancel a tournament? Are they going to cancel some practices? And now I think like juniors coaches are like, oh, I hope nationals still goes off. And something like nationals in the summer is a little in question. Are we going to be able to have any summer camps? There's even a thread I saw on Volley Talk, is the fall season in jeopardy at all? I got to imagine we're going to have some amount of fall volleyball. I think it's fair to say fall volleyball will be affected, if for nothing else, and players aren't in the gym as much as they could be this spring and summer. So as coaches, we're going to have to adapt to that. Talk about that in a second. But for us as coaches, distance coaching is now the reality. And I think the sooner that we can get the ball rolling on this, the sooner that we can be good for what we can do, the better we can be for our athletes and for this game. And it also makes me wonder, how are the rules of our various governing bodies going to impact this? It's not something that the NCAA high school juniors volleyball has really been prepared for. I guess juniors volleyball is probably the loosest in that terms. I think there's not really any restrictions on what juniors teams can do to still engage with their players and stuff like that right now. But, with how we have to be conscious of contacting juniors athletes, how personal that communication can be when it comes to digital communication with high school age players. That's something that we need to consider, because we have a lot of high school age players right now for a lot of coaches. Teenage players who are sitting around kind of a lot of time on their hands, and we want to make sure that we're helping them while keeping our communications appropriate. Obviously, that's a factor. How are high school rules going to handle, if we can't be in the gym for a summer camp like we normally do? Is that going to accommodate some sort of online virtual learning for what players can do? And, can we write them workouts to do on their own? Is that considered prescriptive coaching, et cetera? And, NCAA, obviously, are these countable hours? How are those factoring into that? I think what I'm going to do is get some conversations with at least one NCAA compliance personnel for college coaches to talk about how are we going to navigate this. Right now, nobody knows really, but is there going to be a spring season that gets pushed back until the summer? If the fall looks like it's going to be rolling, are we going to think about maybe expanding the fall preseason a little bit to help athletes get in shape? Because athletes are going to be pretty deconditioned. So I don't know. Those things are a long ways away, but they'll be here before we know it. So I don't know. Right now, as coaches, what can we be doing to think about not just surviving right now, but as we get this return to normalcy, how can we make sure that our athletes don't get rushed into it, still have, are able to get back to where they need to be? I'm doing this webinar on Zoom. Zoom is putting out some good stuff. I think a lot of businesses are hurting, but Zoom is thriving. So anybody who had Zoom stock is probably doing pretty well right now. I think there's some other webinar tools. I'm trying out Zoom. It's what I'm recording this podcast on. It's what we're going to be doing the webinar. this Sunday on. And it looks like a promising tool for being able to share some stuff with the athletes. Like I'm sharing this whiteboard right now for any of you who are watching on video. And I could switch my screen to show video clips, and then I could pop back up so you could see my face again, however it is. So that's something that I'm kind of thinking about. And that's something that I think that we have to kind of be mindful of is, some of these tools that we haven't, we've been comfortable using what we've been using, how I like to use this piece, or I don't like that piece of technology, I don't need it, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to have to adapt as coaches. We're going to have to adapt to some new technology, some new tools, maybe some new norms on how we engage with our athletes and how we can still be productive. That's the reality. What this was making me think of is just what will happen with all of this. Will it be a total back to normalcy, or things permanently change about the way we live? And I always just think about in terms of volleyball, because I'm not the only one who volleyball is like the core part of my life. I think listening to this podcast, probably a lot of you are feeling that way. And I'm just barely old enough to remember what air travel was like before and after 9/11. I was a freshman in high school when 9/11 happened. So I can remember flying. My parents have run a volleyball club forever. So I can remember flying like the summer before my freshman year down to nationals. And then I remember the next year flying to nationals, and it's like, this is different. This has really changed. And even like my wife is only a few years younger than me, and definitely anybody like in their early 20s, that was just normal. Like they don't remember flying like it was before that. And we just kind of adapt and move on. And maybe we make our jokes about the TSA or the security procedures with the heightened alert or whatever. But, it's not like air travel has ceased and we've been able to go on. It's possible that we see some new norms about how coaching or even sporting events are done. Are we going to need like real-time point of care diagnostic tests for athletes, for spectators, for fans, for coaches? Are we going to have a time where athletes, we're planned on one starting lineup and all of a sudden that athlete is not able to participate because they took their morning diagnostic test and it shows that maybe that they're infectious or something like that? I don't think that will happen, but I think something will change a little bit. And as coaches, that's our job to adapt and help our players to adapt. And, some of the other stuff that I'm thinking about in the short term, how do we keep a team together when we can't be together physically in person? This is not something I have the answer for. I don't know if anybody has the answer for it, but it's definitely not me. And that's one of the things I want to do with these conversations. I'm trying to talk to coaches who are college coaches, national team coaches, high school coaches, club coaches, and saying, hey, what are you doing? What ideas do you have? And we might need to look to our players for these ideas because, they've already been living in a virtual world more than we have, I think, for a long time as coaches. So they may know some of these ideas better than we know as coaches. And the final thing I'm thinking about is the physical conditioning aspect. This is something that I know a little bit about just from personal life, not from being an expert, but just I've been a nomadic traveler for years. And, without consistent access to a gym and all that, I'm used to doing workouts in the hotel gym or even just the hotel room. And, we used to laugh when, Dave and I, when we were at world championships with USA or the Olympics or whatever like that, and we're just in the gym scouting matches for like 12 hours, we'd have, these jokes. Every time there was an ace, we'd do two push-ups, or during a timeout where we're scouting a match, we'd do whatever, all these like little stupid workouts. And that's what everybody has to do right now. That's our players. And like volleyball conditioning is hard and it's specific. I don't know if there's a way to replicate jumping, the demands of that. And I just think about like, what's the consequences for that right now? Like, what can we do to kind of help our athletes? And again, how does that impact, rules? And is that prescriptive coaching? And is that going to be the hours and all that? think that's stuff we can figure out. But in terms of our athletes, like how can we help them not decondition too much? And then when we can get back on the court, how do we navigate that? Because what we don't want to see is fall volleyball startup and, 25% of the NCAA blow their ACLs in the second preseason practice because they're so deconditioned to the jumping and the demands of that. So I'm interested to hear what coaches are doing right now, what players are doing right now. There's definitely, I've seen on YouTube, there's a lot of people who are taking this opportunity to provide some information there. Hey, how can you practice volleyball at home? How can you do all that kind of stuff? And, hey, let's just connect the best resources. Can we provide them to our players? So those are the main things that I'm thinking about right now. And I hope that I can contribute to sharing conversations because I'm not the only one. I think texting my coaching buddies, talking to my, coaching friends, and I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of contacts in the coaches world. I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of smart people. I don't know if I'm one of them myself, but I'm fortunate enough to know a lot. And that's what I'm hoping to share. So just, it's not going to be all fixated on specifically how do we handle the isolation or anything like that. It's going to be coaching in general. But this is as coaches, we're problem solvers. That's something that I always heard from Karch. It's just volleyball is all about solving problems, and volleyball coaching is about solving problems and helping your athletes solve problems. This is one of the biggest problems that volleyball players have faced. And the better that we can do, the more valuable we are as coaches, and the better we are for our players and for our teams and for this game in general. So that's that. And back with more conversations. We'll probably check in with Dave once or twice a week, and then have some solosodes and some conversations with some other coaches. And Dave and I will catch up periodically, and he'll give his thoughts on the conversations that I've been having or the thoughts that I've been sharing. He actually has a job, so he's got to keep doing some stuff. But I'm fortunate enough to be able to spend a lot of time here just talking to people and sharing information and doing all that. So if you're interested in talking with Tom Black and hearing from him, hearing what one of the best coaches in the game is doing right now, both in general and also specifically right now, navigating this, still got a few more spots left. You can go on scoutvb.com and sign up for that webinar. And if you missed this one, we're going to have some more people on. I'm lining up the next, I don't want to say the name of the next guest, but another pretty big name like that. So stay tuned, and I hope to hear from you soon. All right. Take it easy.